So what's the purpose of this? The purpose of it is like, suppose you have your internal server. Okay, you in your company premises have hosted some services. Okay, and what you need is that people, when they try to access that, maybe your internal server is. Okay, why is my pen not working? So I was telling you that SSL inbound inspection is like, suppose you have an internal server, okay, and now what you need is that people who are using your services, okay, uh, when they access your website hosted here, you want that they should, they should be checked for what they are sending and what's going back and forth between some external user and the server. Now, one thing good about this thing here is that this is under your control, right? Since this is under your control, what you can do is you can take these certificates out from the server and import them into the firewall, because this is your server, right? So once you have that, okay, whatever certificates your server has, you export and import that, export from server and import it into your firewall. What's going to happen is you can have your external user, go to internal server, and firewall, since it will have the certificates, it can transparently, you know, get involved here and check what are the, okay. Now that happens here. Firewall has those certificates. Okay. So in this case, there is no proxy function. Okay, no proxy function involved because everything works without any kind of double SSL tunnel. Not like here. In here, because the firewall has these certificates, they'll just directly be able to see what kind of content is being sent. This is important. Like if you are hosting something, suppose people are trying to put something malicious into your server, you don't want that. Okay, so you can use the firewall to block it before it gets to your hosting, wherever. Now, then we have SSH proxy. Okay, simple. When you do SSH, even then, you can do a lot of stuff using SSH. To control SSH, again, like the name says, since it is proxy, what is going to happen is, like when you do, I'll remind you, in Cisco, when you do crypto key generate RSA, when you are configuring SSH, what do? When you do crypto key generate RSA on a router, you are basically generating a private public key pair, which you then use while communicating with the router, right? So what happens is, like, your router will have a private key, a public key. Okay, public key it will give to whosoever tries to access this router. Private key it won't give. Okay, so when you try to access, when you SSH to this router, you get the public key. Okay, and you can access your router by doing encrypted communication between the router and you. Now, here user will basically, when it tries to SSH the server, at that time the public key delivered to the user would be from the firewall. Here it will have a public private key pair generated just for this SSH proxy. Different color for that, which will be public and private key pair for the actual server which this user is trying to SSH. This public key will be delivered to the firewall. When this guy initiates a SSH communication, at that time firewall intercepts communication, it initiates its communication with the server. So basically again here there is two SSH tunnels formed. One is from the firewall to the server, another is from the user to the firewall. Okay. SSL forward proxy, this thing, and SSL inbound inspection, both of them, they require certificates to establish the firewall. SSH obviously doesn't require any certificates because it does not utilize them. Now you might be feeling like, okay, why do we need? Sometimes I've seen network engineers who don't have the complete idea about SSH. They think, okay, why are we doing this SSH decryption? See, SSH is capable of even file transfer if you don't know it. Okay. So lot of times attackers, what they'll do is they'll take these their malware or their whatever utility that they have delivered to the potential victim, and they will use SSH to exfiltrate the data from potential victim. Okay. Now, since the traffic is encrypted and we cannot see what is inside of it, it will be very easy to bypass the firewall. We don't want that. Okay. Now, these are the firewall features using certificates. One is decryption, which we saw earlier. Another is management interface user authentication. Like when you go here, you try to log in using the management interface. Here you get a certificate, like I showed. For VPN authentication, we can do it using a pre-shared key or a certificate. A certificate is thought of to be more secure. HA authentication can also be done using certificates. And we can have syslog authentication so that all the logs get proper server using proper verification. Global Protect, we will discuss and see this later. But for that also, we have portal authentication and gateway authentication. These are happening with certificates because I'll give you a brief here. Like portal is basically that thing which you open to download the VPN client. So suppose you are a remote access VPN user, then you open portal and download the VPN client using the portal. You type in the public IP, or actually, most likely you will type in the domain which gets resolved in the actual facing interface of we'll see more about it later. So let's discuss a little bit about public key infrastructure. Basically, PKI solves the problem of secure identification of public keys. Okay, how does it solve that? I've discussed it yesterday. It uses digital certificates to verify who the owner of this public key is. Okay. Now, a lot of times in this, there is a CA involved, like I described, certificate authority will be providing you a certificate saying, okay, this guy is really who he says he is or not. Okay. So now, if you look at the public key infrastructure, you'll find that there is something called a root CA, there is something called an intermediate CA, and then device and many other things. Now, point here is like, what is a root CA? See, in order to verify sometimes other certificate authorities, they have to get a certificate for themselves. So root CA is the guy who initiates or who is the first in this chain of trust. Okay. And intermediate C, suppose, I'm just taking raw examples. I don't know exact companies, but suppose like, I require a certificate for my device. I go to ABC company, okay, and ask them for a certificate. And they give me a certificate. I buy the certificate and everything and utilize it on my device. Now, whenever I present the certificate to anybody, like suppose somebody opening my website or whatever it is, what happens is this device is going to, when it gets the certificate here, it's going to verify the identity of CA. If it trusts this CA, fine. Like I showed you in the browser, it has a list of CA trusts. If it doesn't trust, it might ask for a certificate from that CA as well. And that CA certificate might point to another CA. Okay. Maybe this browser doesn't know about this ABC, but knows about the XYZ, the root C. Okay. So basically, this is how it is. Like I'll give you another example. Like suppose let's say in case of iCards, this is income tax department. Now you trust income tax department because you know that income tax is a legal thing from government of India. Okay, so it's like this. Okay, when I get a PAN card and use my PAN card to whatever show somewhere and maybe file tax returns, it's verified by this CA. This is verified in turn by the government. You get the point? Now, this is what I was saying, that when you get a certificate, it has issuer's CA name, okay, which references, and you can verify the intermediate CAs, okay? And you could also take up and cross-verify from their CA certificate to root CA. Okay? Root certificate authorities have a self-signed certificate, because if we just go on continuing this chain, then there is nowhere where it will end. So root CA has self-signed certificate. Like if you see here, okay, I opened imetiter.com, I saw the security. Okay, I click here, view certificate. Now when I click view certificate here, I opened up this. Okay, now what you see here is we, iMedita, got ourselves verified by Comodo CA Limited. How? Actually, we were issued a certificate by Cloudflare. That's another organization. Okay? And it's like this, the certificate hierarchy will reveal it further. Like, Cloudflare is getting its certificate from Komodo and is obviously having a self-signed certificate. This is how it, works properly. Clear? Now, sometimes there can be revocation of certificates as well, like maybe because the certificate was compromised. Maybe you move the device to you now have decommissioned that device and now you have another device. So for that purpose, now check this out.
Hello?
Yes, Sudhanshu.
I think it should be better now. Okay. And now, see, initially what you do is you determine the chain of trust. Okay. And like whenever you get a certificate, you determine the chain of trust. Like, okay, who is the intermediate CA, who is the root CA. And then each signature, each certificate is verified, whether their signature is valid, whether their date range is valid, or whether it's corrupt or not. Okay, if that is done, once that completes, you also check these things. One is certificate revocation list, and another is OSCP, OCSP protocol. Okay, OCSP protocol is used to cross verify whether a certificate has been revoked if its status is not valid now. Okay. A reason we revoke certificates, like I told you, is sometimes the private key gets compromised, host name or username of owner changes, maybe your decommission device, host retires, or user who generated the key leaves the organization. Okay. Now, like I showed you, you can have a certificate signing request, okay, which is a message sent to CA to acquire a certificate. Okay, so I'll just show you, but I will not buy a certificate properly, but I'll just show you what happens in case you want to get a certificate from a proper CA instead of we just utilized our certificate. Okay, now what you do here is you click generate, you give some name. Your CA, you will have to check with your CA like what kind of things he requires minimum in this, because they might have a requirement like minimum these 3 things or these 4 things should be in certificate attribute. So just cross verify them, and that from them also you can cross verify these cryptographic settings that you want. So I'll say, this is verified by Exchange Certificate Signing Authority, and we can give it a name like something. That's the name of certificate. Okay. This is like, whatever you want to appear on the certificate, like I'm just randomly giving any. You could also put IP address, preferably don't do that. And then you can fill in all these things. Okay. See, we didn't check this checkbox. If you check this checkbox, you are saying to the Palo Alto Firewall that you yourself are the certificate authority for it. That is what we call a self-signed certificate. So you can fill in all these details. I'll do it in short now. Okay. Fine. Once we do all this, okay, we click generate. Now, if you see for this certificate, what does it show you? It does not show you like it's in a different color, right? What you see is it does not have the CA check and its status is pending, right? So you take this certificate now, okay, and you export this, okay. And did you notice like this file comes at a .csr, okay. So if you save this file, save this file, now let me open it up. This is what a certificate signing request is, okay. So depending upon different certificate authorities, there are some which show you so like you see GoDaddy here for Apache requires these things: common name, organization, unit, state, province, okay. And you know, they have not shown it publicly. Actually, most of them show it after you pay. But my point here is like, you know, they have a field where you put in all this text. Okay. Once you paste all this, they will give you a certificate which you can utilize. Just give me a moment. I'll search for somebody who shows.
Sudhanshu, sslshopper.com.
This is shopper.
SSLSHOPPER.com.
Yeah.
Is the correct link?
Like a lot of them give the, you know, like pay first before we show you that. But like they have given you here, okay, like optional. I would like to provide my CSR and autofill names now. Okay. So you basically paste or you can upload the CSR file here. You can select whatever your server software is. Okay. If you have some other. Okay. And then click continue. It's going to check all the things and then you buy the certificate. You get the point, right? Like where do we use this? Okay. So think of certificate signing request just like you filling a form to get an I-card. Okay. So this CSR is of no use till once you have that. Okay. Once you buy and pay all that, what you do is you come back here, you click import, you browse that file which they'll give you, that providers, and once they give you that, you can upload that here. Okay, once you upload, this won't show as pending, this will show as valid, and it will also show you like who is the CA. Okay, so CSR, what is it? It is a message sent to CA to acquire a certificate. So what happens is applicant creates a public private key pair, signs uh, identity info using private key. Applicant then sends signed information and public key. So basically, the CSR is encrypted using the private key. But when you give this CA guy the public key and the signed encrypted information, this guy will be able to decrypt this signed information, right? So once they check it out, they give you a signed certificate. Okay. Now in here, notice your private key never leaves this device. Okay. And basically, this is how your device becomes part of PKI, public key infrastructure, or chain of trust. Private key never leaves the device. What you give to people, even for CA people, is public key. Okay, and don't think CA is chartered accountant. Okay, because in India we have that CA more popular. Okay, so like I showed you in the certificate management, you can go to device certificate management, certificates. For all these operations, you can click to generate, view, modify, import, export, delete, revoke. Okay, revoke you will use only if something bad has happened. Okay, fine. So like
Is there any possibility to give the mail ID because of after before alerting, before expiring, we can get any mail before 1 month or 1 week.
see, most of these people who from here you will be buying these certificates, okay, they will ask you to they sign up for their account. Like if you go for GoDaddy, they'll make you a GoDaddy account. So once you make a GoDaddy account, they ask you for your mobile number, email ID, and I had purchased the domain like sometime back, like 1 2 years back. I was trying to do some experimentation, and they call you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So don't worry about that.
Okay, okay, okay.
Because it's business for them. Okay,
Yes,
they have
yes.
big call center set up just so that ask people to renew their domain and SSL and all these things. Okay, plus you will get
Yes.
email notifications for same as well. Yeah. Mhm. 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 So there are many things, and even uh, there is something called Let's Encrypt, who have worked on these things. I haven't tried this service. Somebody was telling me this. They are kind of like open source and giving certificates for free. I didn't do any practical to try that. If I had done that, I would have showed you. But like they give you the option to they give you the certificate for free for 90 days or something like that. Okay, and a lot of people use that as well. Okay, so if you have access to your Linux server shell, your root account access, and you have the CLI access. Like obviously in Palo Alto we don't have that because they have blocked the Linux access. But in if you are like really hosting a website, you will have your Linux servers, or depending upon what where you have hosted, you will have that server, and then you can even ask for them through your CLI. Also, uh, some people set up a cron job, which like think of it as a scheduled task for Linux. Okay, so sometimes for certificate expiry, they also have a cron job which renews this thing. Okay.
Okay.
So signing certificates are authorized to sign other certificate. There is a special certificate called a signing certificate, which can sign other certificates. Okay, and the signing certificate must be a CA certificate. Okay. Now, like I told you, there are three methods to obtain a firewall certificate. One is generate a firewall self-signed certificate, which we did yesterday. Another is generate a firewall CA certificate using a CSR, which I just showed you, and then import a firewall CA certificate directly. That can be done without generating a certificate signing request. You can directly take up a certificate and import it into the firewall. That can be done as well. Okay. Third thing is for like if you have uh, like for SSL inbound inspection, at that time you won't have your own certificate. Okay, your server will have a certificate which you'll just import. So that's third. Okay, first thing I've shown here, we saw this practically yesterday. Okay, second is like I told you, you click generate, you don't check this checkbox, you keep it unchecked, you fill in all the details and ask for uh, use a certificate, basically generate a CSR, and then you can click export. Once you have the certificate, you can import it back by browsing, and then you will have the certificate. Okay. In these cases, you will have a very big external authority. Okay. third is you basically directly click on the import and use a already verified certificate. Okay. Now, like I told you yesterday, there was some checkboxes. There was forward trust and forward untrust. Right here, when we clicked on this certificate, there was this forward trust, forward untrust, and trusted root CA and all. Now, see, if you go here, you can go on this second tab. You see, even firewall knows some CA, just like your browser. Okay, it also knows a lot of certificate authorities. There are some certificate authorities which it trusts. There are some certificate authorities which it doesn't trust, which have expired. Okay. Now, what you understand from this is when you suppose are trying to establish a connection with somebody outside of your company. Firewall, since like I told you in proxy, in case of SSL forward proxy, I'll just quickly remind you here, then we'll go further. Like in this case, when you are trying to access a website, okay, yeah. So in this case, suppose this internal user is trying to access this website. Now what happens here is this public and private certificate will be involved, right? And this public certificate will reach the firewall. Now, if the firewall looks at the public certificate and feels like, this certificate cannot be trusted, like maybe they feel like maybe it has expired, okay, then you don't want to allow user to open that website, right? Are you getting my point? If the firewall looks at whatever the person is opening up, you might have seen sometimes, while opening some government websites, sometimes it's giving you an error like certificate has expired. Okay, like I've seen a lot of them, especially with the state government sometimes, because with central government they have directly involved NIC with them, which takes care of a lot of technical things, but with state governments they sometimes struggle. So I'm just saying, like, if the certificate is not valid now, maybe you get those errors which are something like this. When you open that website, you will get an error like this. Okay. Now, since you don't want people to be able to open this, like as a network admin, what we do is we have forward untrust certificate. Okay. In that case, what happens is firewall will be giving this guy a certificate showing that this certificate is not trusted. Are you getting my point? Let's look at it from here. Okay, see. Firewall can use certificates signed by enterprise CA. Okay. And once they are on the firewall, it can decide who is a forward trust, forward untrust. Now see, like I'll give you an example here. This internal user is trying to establish an SSL connection, for which Palo Alto in turn tried to establish a SSL connection. When this server got this, when this firewall got the server certificate, if certificate is untrusted, if it is like an invalid certificate, it will basically give this guy back a signed copy of forward untrust certificate. Did you get the point? So that this user gets an error message, okay, on their browser saying like, don't open this website and like that. Are you getting my point? Now, at the same time, see, you like initially we discussed forward trust. You could set up forward untrust certificates. Okay, clear? Lot of times I've seen people who don't really understand, and they just take the certificate and fill in, check these both check boxes on the certificate, same certificate, like forward trust, forward untrust. Okay, but it is highly recommended to keep these two certificates separate. Okay, clear on this? These are the check boxes. Okay, give me like 5 minutes. Okay, I'll be back. There's something I need to do. I'll be away from the speaker, so I won't be able to listen if anybody says something. Okay, so on that. So I hope you got the concept like forward trust and forward untrust. What do you mean by that? You can check these checkboxes both in the same certificate, but it's recommended that you have these in separate certificates. Okay. Now we saw this yesterday. We'll discuss the theory of it. Like when you configure firewall to decrypt SSL traffic, what happens is, like I told you, external server, when internal user initiates a communication, okay, they request the SSL connection. Firewall will request a connection from external server, okay, and the server certificate, when it reaches the firewall will sign and basically gave a copy which we generated, whether self-signed or whether purchased from a uh, genuine CA to this user. When this key is generated, these are two separate keys. One key will be applicable for the SSL tunnel between the user and firewall, whereas the other key will be responsible between firewall and the external server. Okay. Use an SSL forward decryption policy to decrypt inspect traffic. We did that. Okay. And the benefit is like if you try to download a malware, like I'll show you. In fact, we can see this. Like here, let's put the antivirus profile. Okay. Yesterday we did file blocking. Now, see, currently in decryption, suppose let's say enable this. Let's keep this disabled. Let's first show you without enabling it and with enabling. So I'm into this Windows machine, and if you go here, remember we went to the EICAR website to download the malware file to check whether antivirus profile was working properly or not. At that time, I had clicked on these links, okay, and they were caught by the firewall. Like, you know, when I clicked here, firewall blocked it. But if I click here, firewall doesn't block it. Like, you can see, if I click here, it allows us to open the file. I don't want to, but it's not able to catch it. Why? Because here HTTPS is being used. So once I have my decryption policies, you know, enabled back and committed, it will be able to figure out this for even. Okay. Now, if I try to click on this, see, it's blocking the SSL connection when it realizes that this is a malware file. So you get the point, right? If you have SSL enabled and you want to check with SSL enabled, you can try to download this. Once you have decryption, you won't be able to download. Clear? So again, you can go to the monitor and threads to really see that we tried to download it. Okay. File. Okay. So this is the working of forward proxy decryption, like step 1, step 2, firewall initiates. I explained it to you. Okay. This is just for your reference. And then this is like, theory of it. You can give it a reading. If you feel like discussing some point, just let me know. Also, this is available in the PanOS admin guide. Although you'll be getting these slides in handout from Medita, but if you directly want to read it from PanOS admin guide, you can start reading this decryption part. Decryption is almost of 60 to 70 pages, so you can start reading the concepts here. You can even read, like, how do you define traffic to decrypt, like we said that we don't want to decrypt financial and health websites. So you can read it from here. Okay. They'll also give you a step-by-step configuration checklist. Okay. So this is all coming directly from the PanOS admin guide. I won't take any credit for testing. Okay, so read it from PanOS admin guide. Okay, let's not waste time discussing theory here. You can read it. Yeah, okay. Here it is. So, okay. These are the configuration steps which we did. Configure the firewall to handle traffic appropriately, like configure the interfaces and everything. Then configure appropriate interface certificates on the firewall. Configure SSL decryption rules. Enable SSL decryption notification page. Like, this is what I'll show you now. See, what happens is people get this. If you want to be genuine with people, and if you really have a legal commitment to do this, what you can have is you can tell people that their traffic will be decrypted. Okay, like, I'll show you. What I'm going to do is again in the response pages, okay, just where we enable the response pages for other things, there is a SSL decryption opt-out page. If you click on this, you can enable this. Okay, we came here earlier for application block page, remember? Not required for SSL decryption. I'm just enabling everything because the rest of it is enabled by default. You just have to click on this and check this checkbox. Also, you can modify, import and export this, make it a more refined HTML page if you want. Now, see what changes. Decryption still happens. It's just that you are giving a warning to people that we are going to perform decryption. If you don't want to have your content decrypted, don't access it. That's the whole point of it. Okay. Like, now if I go to imeditor.com, You see, what does it show you here? If you say, if you proceed with this session in accordance with the company security policy, we will temporarily decrypt traffic so that we can inspect it for virus, spyware, and malware. After inspection, traffic will be re-encrypted and sent to its destination. Okay. If you don't want to proceed with this session, you can click no. If you want to proceed, yes. Okay. Now, see, there is no way to not have content decrypted selected from the user. Okay, like user cannot say like, no, I don't want decryption, and they won't do decryption. No, it's not like that. No means you are not proceeding with the website. Okay.
What is
Yes means
category? Category is showing any.
because it's just taking based on IP address, that's why it's showing category as any. In some cases, it will show the category of the actual website.
Okay.
Like this won't be displayed for hdfcbank.com because in that case we are not decrypting it, right? So category is for website category. Like if I go to cisco.com, now since I said no, maybe I'll have to restart the browser to keep track. Maybe it is some configuration. So they give you a cookie to keep it in your browser if you say no. So now if you say yes, it won't be displayed for every website, but first time you access, it will be displayed to you. Like if I go to subsequent websites like cisco.com, it doesn't display that because now you know that your traffic will be decrypted. Okay, got the point? So that's an optional step. We didn't do it yesterday. So like I told you, decryption is subject to legal and privacy concerns. So check with your local cyber laws before doing it. Specifically for financial websites, it's really like, don't do it. We can do it, but it's not like we cannot do it for financial websites. But legally, it won't be good. It will be illegal. Okay. So configuration steps: you create a certificate, and then you go to the decryption policy. You define financial and healthcare, and say no decryption in this. Decrypted. You can say want to decrypt everything else. Okay. Yeah, they already have the URL database. Okay, so see what happens is like when you purchase a domain, you tell about the nature of the business. Okay, so initial categorization, like suppose I go to GoDaddy.com, sometimes they'll ask you like, what are you going to use this domain for? Okay, if I say a restaurant, they'll utilize that information to categorize it for various people. Are you getting my point? So it's not that difficult a job for Palo Alto because most of the domain sellers they ask you this kind of information, and most of the times it is like user will respond with the correct information. Like they won't try to hide. Even if they try to hide, like I showed you, like if you feel like we had went here URL filtering dot follow Alto networks. I really feel like yeah, yeah. Personally, I feel like they have a very big domain. Like it should have been smaller. Alto networks.com. URLs should be crisp, short. I'm sure someday you'll see Palo Alto getting migrated to another domain because these big companies try to have, like 6, 7, 8 character domain names. So, like I was telling you, you can go here. We saw this earlier, right? Some days back. So, if you go here, how do you verify? Like this is sometimes they give you very far away picture. Verify traffic lights, verify cars, bridges. Could be because 500 errors come when there's an issue at the server side. Anyways, my point is like when you see a captcha validation error. My point is like when you see a website here, you can request a domain, request a category change. Like if you feel like that website doesn't belong to this category. So people also help them out in this. Okay. So configuration steps are not that difficult, right? It's more difficult to understand like how it really works. Okay. If you use a self-signed certificate, you are going to get browser errors like this, or you can import your certificate onto the browser or onto the machine, depending upon how you want it. If you bring it onto the machine, then it won't show for any of the browsers any error. Okay. Next, let's talk about this decryption profile. Okay, we didn't touch it yesterday, but like if you go here, just under this option of SSL forward proxy and decryption, there's something called a decryption profile. Okay, what is this? Okay, it depends on various different types of decryption. It has various options. Okay, like you see here in the decryption profile, you have the initially three things: SSL decryption, no decryption, SSH proxy. SSL decryption is like for SSL forward proxy, inbound inspection, and SSL protocol settings. What do you mention here? You mention like block sessions with expired or untrusted issuers. Okay, So if a certificate has expired, if a user is trying to access a website whose certificate is expired, a firewall will not allow you to access that website. If the CA is not trusted for that, for that certificate, then also it is going to block. Okay. Also, you can set like other restrictions like this. Okay, block sessions with unsupported versions. Okay. So these are some of the basic options you might require for SSL forward proxy. Okay. Clear? What's the job of decryption profile? And again, decryption profile and decryption policy are two different things, just like security profile and security policy. Okay. Also, you can modify the certificate revocation timeout here by going to device setup session decryption settings. Like I told you, the CRL and OCSP are used to check whether the certificate is really valid or not. So the timeout is like 5 seconds by default. So if it doesn't receive a response whether the certificate is valid or not, it will allow you to open the website. So these are settings related to that. If you don't want this certificate revocation to work, which you should not do, then you can keep these checkboxes unchecked. Okay, I hope you got like why we were discussing CRL and OCSP earlier. Then there is SSL inbound inspection. Like I told you, in this case, what you do is admin imports copies of server's certificate and keys onto the firewall. So whenever client initiates a connection, firewall, since it will have the server certificate and keys, it will be able to transparently decrypt the SSL session. Okay. Thing you must install, it's mandatory, because in this case it's not a proxy. This self-signed certificate or you buying a certificate won't work. Now it also, SSL inbound inspection also depends on type of key negotiated. Okay, now there are different methods, like if you okay, if you go here, this is RSA algorithm. Okay, and there is one thing called perfect forward secrecy as well. For RSA keys, firewall can perform SSL inbound inspection without terminating the connection. Okay. For RSA keys, it's very easy for the firewall. Okay. Because it can copy that particular packet and decrypt. Okay. If you are using this other method, depending upon your certificate, if you are using the algorithm of ECDSA, elliptical curve DSA, this is a perfect forward secrecy method. Then firewall will have to work as a man-in-middle proxy between external server and internal server. Okay. So depending upon what kind of configuration you have for certificate on the server. Okay. Why is it required as a proxy in inbound inspection? Because in this case, each session generates a new key. Okay, so you cannot simply copy and decrypt it. Okay, so in case of even SSL inbound inspection, so if you are using ECDHE, okay, then it will act as a proxy. Client will establish a session with firewall in turn will establish a session with. So okay, Configuration steps are pretty easy. First step, configure firewall, configure interface and stuff. Ensure that targeted server certificate is installed on the firewall. Now, actually for me, the problem is I cannot, I don't have a proper server installed with SSL enabled at all. I'm not that good in, server administration. Okay. So once you have that, okay, it's simple. You have to come here and import the certificate. Okay, you can browse and import all these things. Once you have that import, you again go to the decryption policy. And here, when you add this, the only difference would be instead of this SSL forward proxy, you are going to select SSL inbound inspection. Whatever certificate you have uploaded, you will bind that certificate. You will mention that certificate here. Okay. Optionally, you could add decryption profile. There are some settings related to decryption profile for even inbound inspection. Clear? So you create a decryption policy and apply SSL controls. Okay. Like I told you, you go configuration steps. You import whatever server certificate you have, browse and upload it here. Then you do this. You mention the certificate. The type of decryption would be obviously SSL inbound inspection. And you can mention the decryption profile. Okay. For decryption profile for SSL inbound inspection, previously we looked at SSL forward proxy. In the inbound inspection, you will have these two options: block sessions with unsupported versions and block sessions with unsupported cipher suits. Like, there is different versions for this, for SSL and all. Not here, but you go here. There are some versions of SSL, depending upon, here. Different browsers, it's different. So it's something like this actually, like which version of SSL you want to, enable. Like here, it's if you just want only SSL version 3, because there are some vulnerabilities found in even older versions of TLS and things. So you can define minimum version and maximum version. Similar to that, like you can block people from accessing this website if they are trying to use maybe TLS. Okay. Also, you can keep these checkboxes checked, like which particular key exchange mechanisms are allowed, RSA, Diffie-Hellman, or ECDHE, which encryption algorithms are supported, okay, and which authentication algorithms are supported. Okay. Fine. Third thing is SSH proxy, in which you don't need to generate anything. Firewall automatically generate the keys to intercept this communication. So a client initiates a connection to maybe SSH this server. Firewall intercepts the client's request. It initiates an SSH connection with the server. Server sends a response. Firewall generates its keys and sends them to the client. So now client has a SSH connection with firewall. Firewall in turn has a connection with the actual server. Okay, so it can look at all the things that client is sending to the server. Okay, and again, this part is from the PAN-OS admin guide. So go ahead, read it from there. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So see,
So
SSL
Dhanshu,
decryption.
two session will create in a SSH proxy.
Yeah. Yeah. Separate.
Okay. Mhm.
See, that's why we call it proxy. In case of inbound inspection, we don't call it a proxy till you use ECDAT.
Okay.
Okay. Now, obviously, SSH does not require certificates. When firewall boots up, it will generate the keys which are required for SSH decryption. Okay. Like I told you, SSH can hide malicious traffic. So it's important to have SSH proxy. Alternatively, you could also make a security policy rule if you don't want SSH to be enabled at certain places to just block SSH. Okay. In case of app ID, it's basically simply SSH. So if you want to specifically block it. Okay. It's highly recommended in today's corporate environment that you enable SSH only for people who really are network engineers. You don't enable it for everybody. Okay. See, you can block, but app ID really goes and looks at the application layer compared to just looking at the port number. In a router, if you make a ACL, yeah, you can also restrict it on individual devices. Like even in for firewall, in the management interface setup, if you go device setup interfaces management, we could specify only specific people allowed to access this device, or in Cisco router's case, IP access class. But why allow them to SSH and use this protocol if they are not, like, why would a HR guy or a sales guy do SSH if they are doing, they are really not HR or sales guys. Okay. They are disguised as somebody. This is the reason why big companies do a lot of thorough background checking as well, because somebody could, who is a lot technical, could just say, no, I'm MBA guy. Okay. Configuration, simple. Configure the appropriate interfaces. Again, you create a decryption policy rule. In this case, now we'll select SSH proxy. Also, again, there are some decryption profile rules which are applicable for SSH proxy. Okay. Now, if you look at this fourth step, okay, we can have decryption exclusion. Okay, now what is this? Sometimes what happens is if you disable decryption, if you enable decryption, your applications might break. I'll give you an example. Like if you talk about Windows updates or iPhone updates or Android updates, what happens in that case is when this guy downloads from Microsoft the updates, that communication is also end-to-end encrypted. Okay. And here actually this Windows machine has pre-built certificates to verify the Microsoft identity. Like it's not doing it during this session. So this is what we call a client-side certificate. Like even in your phone, it already has certificates from your manufacturer, like maybe Apple or MI or Samsung, whichever manufacturer has manufactured your phone. Now they don't fetch this certificate. This certificate is already existing in your device, and like even for updates of Apple or updates of your Android, if you try to get your firewall in middle and try to decrypt this traffic, this application will totally stop working, and basically people won't be able to download Windows updates. We don't want that. Are you getting my point? So SSL decryption exclusion is for things like this. Okay, you get the point? It's not for like our earlier case where we discussed like we don't want healthcare websites and financial websites to be decrypted. Okay, it's not for allowing people or not allowing people to decrypt something. It's basically if you decrypt some things, the application completely breaks. So what you can do is you can configure SSL decryption exclusion list to say that these domains, if people go to these domains, don't do any decryption. Okay. Also for SSH, you have this options in the decryption file. Okay. Like I'll show you. Theoretically, see, some applications might not work with SSL forward proxy, like applications that use client-side certificates or non-RFC compliant applications or servers using unsupported cryptographic settings. Suppose you have a server which is utilizing this older versions of TLS rather than SSL v3. Now, in that case, you can put them in a exclude cache. Okay. If you put them in an exclude cache, the decryption won't be attempted for another 12 hours after first occurrence of breaking the application. Okay. Also, you could check it using CLI from this command. Okay. The command will also give you a reason why the decryption failed. Okay, like app unsupported, certificate maybe it's unsupported, maybe SSL version is unsupported. Okay. Now for this, like I told you, we can have SSL decryption exclusion. What's that? Read this. It is not for the sites that you choose not to decrypt for legal or regulatory purposes. Okay, like we can do that by defining a decryption policy and selecting no decrypt. That's another thing. It is for those sites that break decryption technically. Like if you decrypt these websites, it blocks their traffic. Like if you see, you could go to device, certificate management, and SSL decryption exclusion. I don't know why this is under certificate management, because this is really not certificate management, right? It should be like outside of this certificate management, but I don't know why they keep it under certificate management. Now you see here you have these domains which you can mention and tell individually when you don't want decryption. Like you can see the update.microsoft.com here, WhatsApp, you know, lot of these websites. Okay, so device, these are the websites. Okay, like why? Because you go to whatsapp.com, right? Yeah, whatsapp.net is which is used for background communication. They don't allow you to open the front end website on that. So when you really chat, it utilizes whatsapp.net. Okay, see, this is a predefined thing. Don't you think Palo Alto would have verified that? At least trust this much on Palo Alto. And these big companies, I'll tell you what these big companies will do is they'll purchase domain names which are like extensions of their main domain. Like suppose facebook.com is what you use to access, but if you look at if you talk about Facebook, they internally will have purchased all the Facebook, whether it is facebook.net, facebook.org, facebook. Whatever it is. Why they keep it that for big companies? Because they know that people who are trying to create malware domains, okay, and try to steal people's information, they'll try to utilize these similar looking domain names. You get the point? So most of the times, even if, like, suppose Google, Cisco, these big companies always do that. So suppose if I purchase cisco.net, I'm just saying, like, suppose it is available and I purchase cisco.net, Cisco will ensure that I leave and transfer the domain to them. They'll put all the legal lawyers and everything behind that person. They don't allow. Okay, so you see, you can also add, if you feel like you have some particular website which you want. Okay, and these are actually the websites which or applications which do end-to-end encryption. So you had asked a question some days back, 1-2 days back, that what happens with the end-to-end encryption thing. They are really end-to-end encrypted. I'm not saying like they are not. Okay, and they are excluded from decryption. Okay, and these updates also come along with the firewall updates, so you do not to worry about most common applications, but you can have your own by adding these things here. Okay, websites with known decryption problems are pre-populated on the list. Exclusion list is updated via content updates. You can add websites based on your knowledge. Okay, fine. Next, we have no decryption. Okay, even people sometimes might be like, people ask this commonly, although you guys didn't ask, that okay, this makes sense, okay, but what if I have don't decrypt, okay, and can I apply some things here using still decryption profile? You can still apply things using decryption profile even in case of when you are not decrypting content for certain people. Okay, like this rule, we could enable still decryption profile. Why? See, when you make decryption, you see, even for these websites of healthcare and financial, do you want to allow people to open websites whose certificates have expired? Like suppose there is a bank lazy enough, maybe a small time bank, lazy enough to not update their certificate and their certificate is expired. Do you want to block that session or not? We want to block that session, right? Or maybe if there is a healthcare website, maybe some small time lab which does blood tests and stuff, and if they have their certificate expire, you don't want to allow people to access that session. Okay, so we can have even decryption profile for sessions which are not actually decrypted. Okay, are you getting my point? This opt-out SSL decryption page I already showed you, that in a privacy sensitive situation you might want to alert users that we are decrypting your traffic. Okay, yeah, see, it's like actually when you open a modern day website, not everything is encrypted. Like I'll give you an example. Suppose sometimes even browsers will show you this. Okay, like I've opened imedita.com. Okay, it's on HTTPS, but if you click here, what you see is here Firefox has blocked parts of this page are not secure. Okay, which parts? Maybe there are some images. Okay, like this. Okay, or maybe there is some images like this which we don't require to be encrypted. Okay, because encryption also enhances the delay. It increases the delay, right? Sometimes websites will leave certain parts which are not privacy sensitive to open, not encrypting those sections. Sometimes it's also like some parts of things are hosted at a certain other place. Even when you are having a Facebook plugin on your website, that part is loaded from the Facebook website. It's not loaded from your website. So that part will be decrypted because it's looking at individual packet flows, not as a one browser session. Even when you open one browser, one web page, you do a lot of three-way handshakes and a lot of packets are coming from different places. Okay, this I showed you yesterday, like how do you verify decryption? You can go to monitor logs and see that the traffic is really decrypted. Okay, if you want to verify for a certain IP address, you can directly click on this IP address. No need to type it all here in the filter. You can click on this, it will automatically add this. Okay, like I'll show you. If you go to this, suppose monitor, okay, and traffic. Okay, if I say decrypted, yes, okay, fine. Let's remove. Okay, I'll say decrypted. If I click decrypted, yes, I click on this. What does it say? It says flag has proxy. Now, if you want for a particular destination, like suppose maybe this, you click on this, and it automatically adds this here. Okay, you don't need to manually type it. Most of the times, people click these things and then modify it. Okay. So when you see these things in monitor, don't think I'll have to remember everything. Okay. Also, you could check where the application is necessary. Okay. You could also take up a session ID and check it for individual session IDs for decryption. Okay. Also, you could click on this magnifying glass icon. This I showed you yesterday. Okay. Now, there is something called decrypt mirroring, which we discussed long back when we began the class. I told you that there are some companies who, especially like organizations like FBI, CIA, CBI, these kind of organizations, whatever website or whatever you open, they'll keep a copy of it in plain text for historical reasons. And if you have done something which you should not have done, they'll take it up as an evidence and show it in the court and take action against you for their employees. I'm not saying like general citizens. Okay. Like most of the security organizations like FBI, CIA, they tell people like don't expect any privacy when you're using the individual hosts which you are being given for office purposes. So in that case, what happens is in a higher end Palo Alto firewall, you could say that when people go to google.com or when people, when you do decryption, funnel it up to this particular interface. That interface will be configured as a decrypt mirror. Okay. Now in this case, these devices are very secure devices. From you would have heard for most of their names. Like one is one of the vendors who manufactures equipment for storing this plain text kind of things. With Palo Alto is Hills. Okay, so they are more involved with organizations with security, national security, defense, and these kind of. Okay. So decryption mirroring can be used to forward decrypted traffic as plain text to a third-party solution for additional analysis and archiving, like I told you. In this case, you would require a dedicated interface, which is required to be configured as a decrypt mirror. Okay. This can be used for network forensics. Okay. Requires a free license for selected firewall models, available only for high-end firewall. I think 7,000, 5,000 is what it is available for. And make sure you are aware of the local laws and regulations for this. Okay. So configuration, okay, you might never configure this, but we have tried to include this just so that you are comfortable. Like it's not that difficult configuration. You just have to configure an interface, select a type as decrypt mirror and done. Okay.
So it's like syslog server, right?
Not syslog, because this is not logging like syslog. This is actually storing what you accessed. So if you opened, if there was an image, it will store that. Syslog doesn't do that, right?
Mhm.
So suppose you open a website, all the content that you see as a user, all of that content, you see the exact copy. Even if you have Google logo, all this is stored there. So
Okay.
actual copies of what the user is accessing, not the logs on that. Okay. For syslog, we have another interface.
Hmm.
So you might have to activate the decrypt mirror license, okay, which is free, because if you are already spending 7,000, you know, spending money for a 7,000 firewall. So once you enable this, you will have to reboot the device. Once you activate the license, then you go to interfaces. You will have this option of decrypt mirror port. Select the decrypt mirror mode, which is connected to the whatever DLP third-party device you are using, and then create a decryption profile. In the decryption profile, the same decryption profile which we just created, you will have an option of decryption mirroring. Okay, we saw this SSL forward proxy inbound inspection. This is it, but this option was not available in our firewall because we don't support this. Our firewall doesn't support decryption. Okay. So you specify that, and then you say decrypt and specify this profile. So it's not that difficult to configure, right? Okay. Till now you can see that the steps are pretty easy. Okay. Then you go to the content ID, device setup content ID, and there you have to check this checkbox, which will enable forwarding of decrypted content. So these are the configuration steps for decrypt mirror port. Okay. Unfortunately, you won't be doing this until or unless you are really working for, you know, security organization. Okay. Like I personally know a guy who works for CBI. That if you talk about them, they have weird requirements always. Like, you know, it's not like a regular company requirement. Like I'll tell you, like one of the guys who was working there for VoIP. Okay, so he said, the high-level CBI directors and all, they have access to directly call prime minister, president, and top people. So he said he had a requirement, like, as soon as I dial a number, the call gets connected and call gets over, the number should get deleted from the call logs. It should not stay in the IP phone. Okay, so why is that? Because he doesn't want somebody to be picking at the call logs to figure out, okay, what's the number for, you know, Modi or anybody, like that. So, that's why these organizations, they are like, they require these different kind of solutions. Okay, like if somebody is sitting in a maybe prime minister's office, you want to check everything. You will basically tell the user directly, like, we'll be checking out everything. Okay, we'll keep a report and keep a log of everything, so don't expect any privacy. This is generally what they say. I'm not saying for Indian perspective only, like for these national security people, these are the ways they, carry out things. Okay. So this is how you can verify decrypt mirror, whether it is doing decrypt mirroring or not using CLI. Okay. Now you can have HSMs, hardware security mobile module, to manage some digital keys if you want to safeguard these security keys. Okay. So a lot of third-party companies, if you just Google Palo Alto firewall, HSM. You'll find a lot of these third-party organizations supporting HSM modules for firewall. These keys are used for various purposes, like what data should be decrypted and all. Like you just like if you see here. So there's various HSMs. Okay, so like I told you, this company, they also make HSM for Palo Alto. In this case, we have to have a server from them, then set an IP address and everything, and then think of it as like RSA token. Okay, these are the servers which you configure, and then there are tokens. High School Musical. Okay, this is just in case somebody asks you what is a hardware security high school, what is a school musical? You know that it's not High School Musical. Okay. Rest we'll discuss tomorrow. Wildfire, we'll configure the Wildfire and see how it works. Okay. In the meantime, read it from Panwise Admin Guide. Any doubts? I'll end the meeting then.
Sudhanshu, I had a question in our previous classes related to custom URL category. So can we cover in our next classes? Actually, I had a doubt related to custom category. So can we cover?
No problem. We can discuss tomorrow.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Or like, if you can tell me like what specific doubt you have.
No, just actually I had configured in my firewall like one of the social networking website is blocked completely, and I had allowed the specific one URL. So it was denying. So that's why I was asking. It was denying because of I had blocked the whole social networking web categories, and I had created the custom category for the specific.
So you had specifically allowed one particular. You have to allow one particular.
Yes, Friday in the Friday classes we had discussed about it.
Yeah.
Yes,
no problem.
And you told me, yeah, okay, we will check in our next class.
Okay. Fine.
Okay, no issue.
So, we'll discuss tomorrow.
Yes. Okay, fine. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Sudhanshu.
Welcome.